We got Ho-Oh to talk about, and I got the graphics prepared for that, right? So we got the legendary raid bird, all right? We got the Ho-Oh ruining my week. I expected it to be released today or tomorrow, but it got released on Monday, right? So so there we go. Yeah, it's oh yeah, the hype, right? So well, what's good for countering it, and how does it fit in this game and all that kind of stuff. So I made that one graphic, kind of going over just sort of like a concise overview over what's good versus Ho-Oh. So if Ho-Oh doesn't have solar beam, you got your golems trucking in. You got the Raikou wild charge in the fight. You got Tyranitar rocking it. You got Vaporeon. And all these options here are all like very, very good. Extremely good. Some better than others, like no one's touching Golem's DPS here, but they all have their uses, and like Vaporeon and Raikou, they're a bit more tanky against Steel Wing. You got Tyranitar, he's more tanky against Extra Sensory. So they all, have these niches, sort of like little advantages over each other, but generally, the Golem and the Raikou, they're going to be serving you a lot better against not Solar Beam fights. Now, when you get to the Solar Beam fight, then you got the little Death Laser there. Little Death Laser, the big Death Laser, right? So Zapdos has mad swag in that fight because it can actually survive a Solar Beam. And it survives Solar Beam well enough that you can reasonably dodge 2 Solar Beams and have it register. So keep that TDO trucking, total damage output, so like how much damage it deals before it faints. Zapdos is really rocking it there. Raikou is a little bit more iffy-ish. It depends on how early Solar Beam comes and how much bulk your Raikou has. Usually it's not until about like level 35, level 35.5, where it'll actually be able to tank a Solar Beam and a bunch of like Extra Sensory or Steel Wing hits, but before that, it might faint from the Solar Beam if it takes enough damage. So, but in that situation, it's still better than Golem as far as the DPS goes, because this is like kind of like sliding scale of sorts when it comes to the damage here, where it's like if Golem is able to get off the Stone Edge, then that's awesome, and then it does, a whole bunch of damage, but chances are Golem's gonna faint before it gets the Stone Edge off, and so then you got the consideration of Rock Blast, so you got Rock Blast Golem. How good is that compared to Raikou Wild Charge? Well, Raikou's more consistently gonna get a Wild Charge off to hit, Ho-Oh with, and if the Solar Beam comes early enough, Raikou could even survive the Solar Beam to get in a couple more, Wild Charges. So generally, Raikou will be outperforming Golem in those regards. And then you've got Dragonite here, and Dragonite's like a bit of a slower option as far as DPS goes, but definitely tanky. It's got the 4x resistance to the Solar Beam there. Now, as far as if you're like wondering like how well do Zapdos and Dragonite do against the not Solar Beam situation, well, they're a little bit worse, And then I have this graph here where I plotted out all the different Ho-Oh movesets, right? So all different movesets and how these counters perform against all the different movesets averaged together, right? So you're definitely seeing that Raikou is leading the charge there as far as, the TDO goes, and Golem definitely leading the charge as far as DPS. Now, I've included the breakpoint for Golem over here for level 29, just to see where that is. And Omastar with Rock Throw generally like follows Golem in performance, so I decided to just not clutter up a lot of the points here on the graph, and I just included the level 40 Omastar Rock Throw right here. And then Zapdos is a little bit behind, and you got Tyranitar kind of performing as well as a 35.5 Raikou, little magic number there. And then Vaporeon's actually rocking it, Now, a lot of people like to rep Lugia, and I've been to a bunch of raids, and people are talking about using Lugia. Some people use Lugia, and I'm not telling people not to use Lugia, this special boy down here, because it's not a bad option as far as like, overall, but it is like less than 9 DPS here. And if you're kind of curious like what that means in like the grand total scheme of things, Well, 11, I don't have a line on this graph, but like 11 is like the DPS of a golem just using rock throw constantly, not using a charge move. So if you're doing less than 11, you know, it's like kind of like, are you really, how well are you contributing to this fight? You know, if you're using the Vaporeon, then you're contributing a bit better, you know. But if you're using your big boy Lugia there, it's like, yeah, Lugia's staying in the fight for a while, but you know, you're not really moving the fight along, you know. And then when it comes to that dreaded Solar Beam moveset, you know, it's like, well, everybody's fainting all around you, and the longer the fight drags on, the more that's going to happen. And you can be the smug lord, like, well, I'm using my Lugia, so I'm only going to use, like, 3 revives instead of 6, you know? I think it'd really help move things along if you just kind of bit the bullet and use the Golem. And, yeah, so, like I said, Lugia's not bad, you know? It's just not, yeah, I'd much rather be seeing, you know, Vaporeons and Golems as, like, non-legendary options, or, like, Raikos and Zapdoses. That would be even cooler in these fights. Now, this kind of graph here with all the movesets averaged together, it can be helpful for some raids, but given how different of an experience is that Solar Beam is compared to all other movesets, you know, it'd be kind of good to separate them. So I did. And all these graphs, when I put the recording of this up on the YouTubes, I'll link to an album that has all these graphs. Here we've got Ho-Oh with its extrasensory Solar Beam set, and what's good against it, right? So leading the charge once again is Raikou with some big DPS. Now you might be wondering, like, well, before Raikou didn't have higher DPS than Golem, what's going on here? Well, what's going on here is that Golem, like, gets auto KO'd by Solar Beam, you know, and it might not always get its charge move off. And getting that charge move off is huge. Like, if it gets its charge move off, if Golem gets a Stone Edge off, then its DPS is a bit over 14, you know. But if it doesn't get it off at all, then it kind of, like, sinks to, like, you know, a bit kind of like, you know, well, actually, yeah, it sinks down like 11. It's like, huh, well, what is Golem's DPS when it doesn't use its charge move? Oh, yeah, 11. So it sinks down that way. And so yeah, so Raikou here, and then so another thing is that people think that Raikou is tanking these Solar Beams when it hits level 35.5. Well, I mean, you're only going to be seeing like 4 extra sensories before Solar Beam, so it's like, I don't see how that 4 damage is really making the bank, you know. It's actually like its bulk, its overall HP. So level 30 is kind of like just around before it meets that major bulk point. So if Raikou is just being used as like cannon fodder, sort of like a glass cannon because you didn't bring it up high enough, then this is about where it'll perform then. Somewhere between level 30 and level 35.5, it will cross that bulk threshold and you'll be able to tank X amount of extra sensories and a Solar Beam and survive another extra sensory so it can get its charge move off before fainting. And that's when it starts to like get up here, you know. But it's kind of, it really matters like how many hits you're taking before then, you know. And so it's not precisely clear, you know, but somewhere between 30 and 35.5. So yeah. And one thing that's kind of reassuring is my Raikou, right? I was kind of disappointed. Mine is 1411 14, so I kind of noticed this because I was like, oh man, I don't want to power up to level 38. Like, I don't have that kind of rare candy, guys. You know, I don't know what you think about me, but I don't have that kind of rare candy to power up a Raikou. And that's when I noticed that, like, oh, well, it's still making it, and then it's like, oh, it's because it's the HP, right? And so Tyranitar is cool here too, and the reason you're probably thinking, like, Tyranitar, what? Like, why is he doing so great? He's a rock type. Well, sometime after level 35, it also hits that bulk point, if you will, where it's tanky enough that it can eat a Solar Beam and survive long enough to get out another Stone Edge pretty consistently before fainting. So Tyranitar's got that swag. And another thing that's cool about, you know, Tyranitar, Raikou, and Zapdos, and I guess also Mewtwo, once it passes that bulk point, Mewtwo's got similar swag going on. You know, somewhere between level like 30 and 40, it's going to be meeting that point where it can eat a Solar Beam, you know. they can dodge that then and have the dodge actually register because of the way that dodge loop glitch works. So it's another helpful thing. Maybe survive a bit longer, eke out some more damage, and help their TDO out. But the kings of amping up their TDO would be the Zapdos and the D-Knight here, because I don't have it plotted because it depends on how many solar beams you dodge, how much extra sensory damage you're taking, and what your bulk is and stuff like that, how much HP you have. But Zapdos can reliably dodge 2 solar beams and have it register, in my opinion. So when that situation happens, it goes from like this like 2.7, 2.8, and it goes to like kind of like 3.5. So definitely like extends above this Lugia boy here, you know. So getting those dodges in is pretty big, but it's kind of hard to map that on Pokebattler because they don't have like a I dodge 2 charge moves and then I don't function, you know. So you can put it into like, you know, 50% dodge and then try to find the specific candidate simulation that has what you're looking for, but it's kind of swingy that way. It's like, you know, not very certain. Down here again, you got Lugia, and it's like, yeah, Lugia's tanking it. Lugia's got the bulk. So does Ho-Oh. People have been talking about using Ho-Oh against Ho-Oh, and it's like, yeah, they got the bulk. All right, they can survive the hits, but they're not really making it. I don't have Blissey featured on here. Ho-Oh is basically getting pretty dang close to Blissey's DPS, so it's like, guys, like, if you at least have like a level 32 Zapdos or a level 35 Zapdos, 32 is fine, then I'd much rather be seeing that in my raid. You know, Vaporeon, I'd much rather be seeing Vaporeon here against a Solar Beam Ho-Oh. Yeah, against Solar Beam Ho-Oh. Like these other lovely options that perform a little bit better than you'd think, sort of like Tyranitar there. Somewhere between level 32 and level 40, Vaporeon gets enough bulk to, you know, survive Solar Beam sometimes, so helps it out. Oh man, as far as alternative options against a Solar Beam Ho-Oh goes, you know, Gyarados, maybe, you know, Suicune, you know, these are definitely some bottom of the barrel options. Given how much of like a DPS is lost there, you might be better off in my opinion, and this is something I'm going to advocate for people to do, and it's something I advocate in the Game Press article coming out soon on countering Ho-Oh, and that is if you don't have these like high-end, gonna survive long kind of options, then it might just be better to like evolve a bunch of golems, even at like level 23, and or you know, as long as it's like above the level 23.5 attack breakpoint, right? Then just Zerg rushing Ho-Oh with a bunch of those and just accepting the fact that they're all going to be fainting to this solar beam, you know, that might be a better route to go for fighting Ho-Oh here in more casual kind of group settings, because I don't know, I've already come across people that were like, yeah, we tried beating it but we couldn't, we had 8 people and stuff like that. So yeah, right there, Moldy Potato, the Suicide Squad, you know, it's a Suicide Squad of golems. They're just here to die. Just, you know, embrace the beam, you know, stop being a little, you know, stop being be a golem, you know, be a rock, take the hit, accept the fact that the solar beam's gonna kill you. It's not that big of a deal. You know, it is a big deal wasting a raid pass or like wasting like a half hour with a bunch of strangers trying and failing against Ho-Oh because you guys didn't want to use golem, you know, so there's that. Yeah, and then similar with the Vaporeon too, like, if you fear the beam, then the beam's gonna beat you. That's the real killer. Yeah, I like that quote. You know, it's not solar beam that kills you, you know, it's the fear of solar beam that kills you, you know, if you're with a casual group. Now, bringing it back over to this side of the graph, you know, that ugly little left side where everything dies from solar beam, it's actually like, there's like kind of like a fine line somewhere between 2 and 2.5 where it's just like, this stuff just dies, right? And then you look up here to Golem, you're going to notice something really freaking weird, and, you know? And then some fun stuff here, I included Sudowoodo. In case, you know, you don't have enough Golems, I actually evolved a bunch of golems to a bunch of Geodudes into Gravelers to get some extra EXP. And then I looked at my like stash because I wanted to get a Suicide Squad ready, and I was like, I only have enough candy for 5. Oh yeah, you know. Sudowoodo's pretty good. It's like above the Rock Throw Golem line, and it gets that Rock Slide. But yeah, so using like you know, level 28.5, which suggests that using level 30 Sudowoodo, you know, or higher if you caught it in the wild, and that'll be a pretty good, you know, replacement for like a Suicide Squad, you know. And back here is where Water Gun Omastar is, if you're curious. So how far it falls from up here. This is Rock Throw RTWG. It sucks to be Water Gun Omastar. Sucks to be me. And then there's Jolteon, because people are curious how good Jolteon is. So this is a level 40 Jolteon, and even though it seems counterintuitive, a level 40 Jolteon isn't really rocking it quite as well as a level 32 Vaporeon. So I really can't like for sure recommend using Jolteon for this raid if you have other options. I mean, using a Sudowoodo caught in the wild at level like 28.5 or higher, depending on its IVs, will serve you better than Jolteon against the Death Beam that is the Ho-Oh, right? So yeah, so that's against Solar Beam, and it, you know, the inclusion of Solar Beam in that other graphic with all of them, you know, that kind of skews the results a bit. So I decided to also plot it with not Solar Beam. And yeah, so looks like Tyranitar's got some mad swag here that was, you know, previously ignored because of how I was observing it before, like more individually, but now seeing like the whole picture painted. Tyranitar is actually a lot better than when I was selling it, so I don't think it matters too much because Golem, you know, it's like very slightly less TDO but much higher DPS. So it gets a little bit edge case because it's like it's more close to the Raikou, but the Raikou is getting hurt in this situation because it's including Fire Blast, and I'm not gonna make like, you know, I draw the line at like 3 graphs for this kind of stuff. You know, I don't want to make like a billion different graphs for every different moveset, but Raikou has a way better performance against the Brave Bird sets, and so the Fire Blast is kind of hurting it a bit here. So I'd say generally, you know, Golem, Rock Throw Omastar, and Raikou really are like the supreme of supreme against not Solar Beam. But I think Tyranitar could be merited a little bit better than what I had him in that graphic. And then you got Vaporeon rocking it too. And some people were like sassing me. Like, I can't remember if it was on Reddit or Twitter or Facebook. I don't know, somebody was like sassing me and they're like, Vaporeon's awful. How could you include it? It you know, and I'm like, well, look at Vaporeon now, and then if you look at that Solar Beam graph I just had up, it was rocking it there too, like better than expected. So yeah, Vaporeon's pretty swag against this raid, all around. You know, not the worst option. There's definitely a lot worse options, you know. And now in this situation, Ho-Oh and Lugia as counters to Ho-Oh are definitely looking a lot more sorry. You know what I mean? I don't think definitely markedly worse here, right? As far as their TDO compared to the more optimized counters. And then Zapdos is also getting hurt here too because, you know, Zapdos has like a little bit lower DPS, and then also the Fire Blast is hurting it there too. So Zapdos's main swag comes out against Solar Beam. Against not Solar Beam, it's still a pretty dang good option, but you know, Golem, Omastar, Raikou, Tyranitar, Vaporeon, they're going to be doing it a bit better, you know? And then in the back row, we got Mewtwo. Oh, wow, how far are you falling? You're less than level 32 Vaporeon and level 29 Golem. What kind of legendary is that? You know, so, weak guy. And then Dragonite also loses a lot of swag, and it's on the same kind of level as Gyarados. I think somebody on Twitter said, oh gosh, I don't know. This whole week has been a blur for me. Everything's like melding together. But yeah, somebody said they thought that Dragonite and Gyarados were like even in their performance, and they are when Solar Beam's not part of the equation. You know, they're pretty you know, on par. Use them Golems, right? Very good boy there. And if you got the resources for it, Raikou, very nice. And then as before, Vaporeon. Right? Yeah, bring it all together, you know, Ho-Oh, you know, big ol' Raid Birdo. Pretty difficult to counter. People are running into some hard times there countering the Ho-Oh. With Solar Beam specifically, a lot of the local people that I've ran into, they're like, oh man, yeah, like we only had like 8 people and we couldn't do it. And like this kind of situation is very reminiscent of how Lugia was back when Lugia dropped. There were many times where I'd be like driving home from work or something, I'd see like a large group of people in front of a gym and they'd be doing a raid, and then I'd pull up and I'd be like, hey guys, did you guys already do it? And they're like, oh man, we keep losing. And it'd be like 10 people. And it was because they had Hydro Pump. And so I was equipped. I had, all the Tyrantars. I had the good Gyarados and stuff like that. I had the best counters for it. And I would hop in, help them out, and we'd win it, And it's because, people are afraid of the Hydro Pump, And then you have this situation with Solar Beam. I imagine a lot of more casual players are, they fear the beam. And I think they should just like embrace the fact that they're gonna faint. Use golems that they've caught. They could even. I don't think casual players are gonna raid golems. I can't advise anyone to raid golem. But if they raid golem, then they only have to power it up, a little bit to cross that 23.5 breakpoint. And now they got another golem onto their Zerg squad to melt down the raid boss faster than the Solar Beam can wipe them out, and that's kind of what I think a lot of players are going to end up doing. I got my Zerg squad ready to help people out beat Ho-Oh because, like, once again, even though like Dragonite will survive longer, it doesn't have quite the DPS, and that could be significant in trying to help a random group of people defeat the Ho-Oh. So yeah, if you roll up on squads like this, advise the golems. If they have above level 32 Vaporeon, that's kind of like a significant breakpoint for it. Then advise using that. Tell them not to fear the beam and just accept the fact that it's going to melt all their Pokemon, and they should be using really high DPS options, high level caught pseudo-woodos even, right, to try to get through the fight so they can at least get through the fight. So yeah, Solar Beam, right, wrecks us all. And then as far as like non-Solar Beam iterations go, you can use like basically anything. Tyrantar's rocking it, Vaporeon's rocking it, Omastar rocking it, Golem rocking it, Raikou rocking it. So you got like a lot of different options there for defeating the the non-Solar Beam, the not Solar Beam Ho-Oh raid. And I don't think anybody's been running into trouble with that. So, and then once again, I'll go more detail on this if this video kind of glazes over it a little bit. But against Extrasensory, there's that secret golem tech. Pretty cool. Now, as far as how Ho-Oh goes in the meta, how does it size up against Moltres? How does it size up against Lugia?